Okay, I'm confused.
Hi.
Boy, this is weird, huh?
Hold on.
For a show that once dominated primetime television and redefined the modern sitcom with its unapologetically raunchy humor, Two and a Half Men seemed unstoppable. That was, until the very things that made it a hit ultimately tore it apart. Behind the laughter, the beach house, and the endless string of one-liners lay a turbulent production history riddled with off-screen scandals, moral controversies, and a few eyebrow-raising scenes that sparked a public backlash. It was the latter that, in more ways than one, marked the beginning of the end.
Have you been dusting?
No, why?
You reek of lemon pledge.
Today, we'll dive into the details of the controversial scene that ended Two and a Half Men, and we'll also explore other behind-the-scenes drama. Let's get started. Number 15. Carrying on the show without Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen's firing meant that the 8th season had to be wrapped up, but the show had to go on, and it needed a new star. This gave us Walden Schmidt. When Ashton Kutcher stepped into the role of Walden Schmidt on Two and a Half Men, it marked a surprising return to television for an actor who had, by then, solidified his place in Hollywood with a string of successful films. To many, this pivot seemed counterintuitive. Kutcher had already built a name in the movie industry with hits like Dude, Where's My Car?, The Butterfly Effect, and No Strings Attached. So returning to the sitcom format, where he had launched his career with that 70s show, felt like an unexpected step backward. However, in an interview with Howard Stern, Kutcher candidly revealed the financial motivations that swayed his choice. His former agency, William Morris Endeavor, had deep ties to Two and a Half Men, and at the time, the show was poised for a lucrative syndication deal. Syndication, the holy grail for television actors, meant that just a couple more seasons could generate massive profits, not just for the studio, but for the cast and crew as well. Kutcher saw the numbers and made his position clear. He'd take the job if he could negotiate a paycheck similar to what Charlie Sheen had been receiving. Sheen had been earning a staggering $1.8 million per episode at his peak. While Kutcher didn't quite match that salary, the deal he secured was still enormously profitable, making him one of the highest-paid television actors during his run on the series. His 4-season stint from 2011 to 2015 wasn't just a filler arc after Sheen's dramatic departure, it was a financial windfall. Kutcher later admitted, somewhat jokingly but with a hint of pride, "I made $1 billion doing this," reflecting not just his earnings from the show, but also the broader business opportunities it opened up, including increased visibility and leverage in the entertainment industry. Far from a step backward, Kutcher's decision to join Two and a Half Men proved to be a masterstroke in career management. But the show was never the same again. It was funny, yes, but not the same. This, among other things, marked the beginning of the end. Number 14. Jennifer Taylor's luck. Remember Charlie's fiancée Chelsea? Actress Jennifer Taylor portrayed the poised and strong-willed woman who briefly managed to tame Charlie Harper's wild heart.
Well, Alan, there's not much to say. I make a lot of money for doing very little work. I sleep with beautiful women who don't ask about my feelings.
She also appeared on the show multiple times before, each time in a different, smaller role. But it was her portrayal of Chelsea in Season 6 that finally gave her a stable and spotlighted place in the show's universe, and that breakthrough couldn't have come at a more critical moment in her personal life. In an interview with entertainment journalist Jeremy Roberts, Taylor revealed that just before landing the role, she was on the verge of a financial cliff. She had recently given birth to her daughter and, like many working actors struggling between gigs, was facing difficult decisions about her home and her family's future. The roles hadn't been coming steadily enough, and she was preparing to sell her house to stay afloat. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the call came. She had landed the part of Chelsea, a recurring character in one of television's most watched sitcoms at the time. For Taylor, the timing was almost mystical. She saw it as a sign, a lifeline, a perfectly timed reversal of fortune. Stepping onto that set didn't just mean a paycheck. It meant security, validation, and an entirely new chapter. Chelsea wasn't just another one of Charlie's many girlfriends. She was different. The writers gave her depth, confidence, and presence, allowing Taylor to step into the spotlight with more authority than the brief roles she had played before. Fans responded positively, and while Chelsea never became a main cast member, she left a lasting impression during her arc on the show. While the sitcom is often remembered for its male-driven antics and controversial moments, stories like Taylor's reveal the quieter triumphs behind the scenes. Also, did you know that originally, Walden Schmidt was supposed to be very different? Number 13. The Transformation of Walden Schmidt. When Ashton Kutcher first signed on to 2.5 Men, he was introduced to the role of Walden Schmidt under a very different light than what ultimately played out on screen. Walden, a billionaire tech genius reeling from a failed marriage, made his debut in Season 9, stepping in as the show's new central figure after Charlie Harper's sudden departure. Buying Charlie's beach house and becoming Alan Harper's quirky new friend, and eventually, in a plot twist, his legal husband, Walden, was meant to breathe new life into the series. But according to Kutcher, the character he was pitched by creator Chuck Lorre bore little resemblance to the Walden that viewers came to know. Speaking on Mark Maron's WTF podcast, Kutcher described his early conversations with Lorre about the role. The original concept, he hinted, was more layered and possibly edgier than the final version. But between those early talks and the actual scripts he received, Walden had changed. While Kutcher never publicly disclosed what specific alterations were made, he did confront Lorre about the shift. Lorre reassured him that the transformation was part of a long-term narrative arc, and that Walden's character would evolve over time. True to Lorre's word, Walden did gradually shift throughout the series, from a socially awkward, emotionally raw tech mogul into a more grounded and emotionally mature character. Number 12. Charlie Sheen ended up regretting his actions. Charlie Sheen's departure from 2.5 Men was one of television's most infamous implosions. What began as a conflict over creative direction and contract disputes spiraled into a full-blown media circus, marked by erratic interviews, viral catchphrases, and a scorched earth campaign against the show's co-creator, Chuck Lorre. At the height of it all, Sheen embraced a surreal, hyper-confident persona, declaring himself a warlock with tiger blood and launching tirades that painted Lorre as the villain. But years later, the bravado gave way to reflection. In a rare moment of candid introspection during an interview with The Guardian, Sheen admitted that he deeply regrets how he handled his exit from the show that had brought him back into the mainstream spotlight. Speaking to People magazine, Sheen expanded on his regret, confessing that there were countless alternative routes he could have taken, all of which would have been better than the one he chose. What's striking is how different the narrative might have been if Sheen had opted for diplomacy over drama. 2.5 Men was, after all, tailor-made for him, and the chemistry he shared with John Cryer and Angus T Jones was central to the show's runaway success. His off-screen spiral not only derailed his own trajectory, but also forced the show's creative team to pivot sharply, rebranding itself around Ashton Kutcher, in a move that, while financially viable, never quite recaptured the original magic. For a time, it looked like Sheen and Lorre would remain bitterly estranged, with too many public insults and legal threats lying between them. However, Hollywood has a strange relationship with redemption. Time has dulled some of the sharpest edges of their feud, and Sheen's willingness to take accountability, even if long overdue, has reopened the door to the possibility of reconciliation. Number 11. Charlie Sheen had plans for a spin-off. Despite the bitterness and spectacle surrounding his departure, Sheen remained oddly tethered to the legacy of the show, and for years, fans clung to the possibility that he might someday return, even if just for a final, tongue-in-cheek farewell. That opportunity almost materialized during the show's 2015 series finale. In a surprising turn, the producers reached out to Sheen to discuss a possible cameo appearance, offering a chance to give Charlie Harper, the character who had defined the show for 8 seasons, a last hurrah. However, the reunion was quickly derailed by creative differences. Lorre's ending for the series was blunt and symbolic. Charlie would appear briefly, only to have a piano dropped on his head, a nod to the chaos of Sheen's real-life departure, and a final, cartoonish full stop on Harper's story. Sheen, unsurprisingly, wasn't on board. Instead, Sheen pitched an alternate ending that not only kept his character alive, but laid the foundation for a spin-off. His idea was to introduce the Harpers, a new sitcom centered around Charlie and Alan, with Jon Cryer reprising his role. It would have marked a surreal but intriguing resurrection of the Harper brothers, potentially allowing Sheen to recast himself as the lovable, troubled anti-hero in a new chapter. However, in light of the acrimony that still lingered between Sheen and the show's leadership, and likely due to the unpredictability he had shown during his final days on 2.5 Men, the proposal was swiftly dismissed. Number 10. Why not revive the show? In an age when beloved television classics are routinely resurrected for nostalgic audiences, it's only natural that fans of 2.5 Men have wondered if their favorite dysfunctional family might reunite on screen. Given Charlie Sheen's vocal enthusiasm about reviving the show through a new concept he's dubbed the Harpers, speculation has continued to simmer. The idea, which would reportedly see the return of the original trio, has fueled fan excitement.
I just think I owe it to some measure of closure. I owe it to the fans, I owe it to myself.
Especially since Sheen has publicly stated he's sober, grounded, and ready to revisit the role that helped define his career. But despite this renewed energy from Sheen's camp, there's a noticeable silence, or at least hesitation, from Jon Cryer. While Sheen appears more than willing to step back into the iconic Malibu beach house, Cryer has been markedly reluctant, and his reasons stretch far beyond typical scheduling conflicts. In an interview on Access, when asked about the possibility of collaborating with Sheen again, Cryer responded with a measured calm that suggested deep-seated caution. "It's kind of a roller coaster when you have Charlie in your life," he said, adding, "and I just haven't decided to get back on that roller coaster." It wasn't said with malice. If anything, his tone hinted at lingering affection, but it was also clear that the chaos surrounding Sheen's public implosion during his final season of 2.5 Men hasn't been forgotten. For Cryer, the prospect of reuniting professionally with someone who once branded him a troll during a now infamous meltdown isn't just a creative decision, it's a deeply personal one. Financial incentives might one day shift the calculus. After all, in Hollywood, the right number of zeros has a way of dissolving even the most hardened resistance. But as things stand, Cryer's emotional boundaries appear to outweigh nostalgia. Number 9. Remember Angus T Jones? Though 2.5 Men was often driven by the chaotic lives of Charlie and Alan Harper, the emotional core of the show, its charm, humor, and often its most honest moments, was anchored by young Jake Harper, played by Angus T Jones. Jake Harper was more than just a third wheel in the household. He was the grounding presence in a show otherwise packed with dysfunction and adult antics. Surprisingly, the search for Jake wasn't the drawn-out process one might expect for such a central role in a high-stakes network sitcom. In an interview with Foundation Interviews, show creator Chuck Lorre revealed that Angus T Jones was the first and only child actor to audition for the role. Lorre had seen Jones's work in the 2002 sports drama The Rookie, where the young actor played Hunter Morris with a blend of sincerity and likability that immediately caught his attention. Confident in Jones's ability to carry a comedic role with the same charm, Lorre invited him to audition for 2.5 Men. It only took that one reading to seal the deal. What impressed Lorre and the creative team wasn't just Jones's natural talent, but his casual, almost playful approach to the audition. He seemed to be having fun, completely unfazed by the high stakes of network television. That light-hearted energy translated into Jake's on-screen personality. A kid who was sometimes clueless, often sarcastic, and always relatable. Whether trading quips with Charlie or reacting to Alan's neurotic rants, Jones never missed a beat, and his delivery quickly became one of the show's most reliable sources of humor. Over the years, as Jake grew up in front of the audience's eyes, Angus T Jones continued to deliver, navigating the shift from precocious child to awkward teenager with authenticity. For many fans, it was Jake's reactions, his shrugs, deadpan comebacks, and simple, often hilariously literal logic that offered a window into how absurd the adult world of 2.5 Men really was. His casting wasn't just lucky, it was lightning in a bottle. Number 8. Charlie Sheen's real life is no less wild. The uncanny parallels between Charlie Sheen and his on-screen alter ego, Charlie Harper, were not lost on audiences or the people who worked with him. For many fans of 2.5 Men, the effortless way Sheen inhabited the role of a hedonistic, womanizing bachelor was almost too convincing. So, was Charlie Harper a role, or just Sheen being Sheen with a script? As it turns out, even behind the scenes, life sometimes mirrored the chaotic, bawdy spirit of the show, especially when it came to Sheen's dynamic with co-star Jon Cryer. In his autobiography, So That Happened, Cryer opened up about a particularly vulnerable period in his life following his divorce. Finding himself emotionally depleted and navigating the uncharted territory of single life once more, he made the decision, hesitantly, to hire an escort. Much like his on-screen persona, Charlie Sheen stepped in to offer some guidance. He pointed Cryer towards some online platforms that he had experience with, sites that were then riding the first wave of digital age escort services. According to Cryer, Sheen was surprisingly open and matter-of-fact, offering recommendations with the same casual tone one might use when suggesting a good pizza joint. However, Cryer was quick to note that their tastes in partners were quite different. And ultimately, he didn't take Sheen up on his exact suggestions. But that wasn't the only time Sheen's real-life escapades crashed into Cryer's personal world. In another anecdote that sounds like a deleted scene from the show, Cryer recalled bringing a new girlfriend to the set, only to be stopped short by an awkward confession from Sheen. With a straight face, Sheen informed him that he had dated the same woman years earlier. Number 7. Chuck Lorre, Almost Quit. While Charlie Sheen's meltdown during his infamous fallout with 2.5 Men grabbed global headlines and dominated tabloid coverage, the emotional and professional toll on show creator Chuck Lorre remained largely overlooked.
Well, I don't want to get into it because it's too inflammatory, but how can I not wish that things had changed and turned out differently with Charlie?
Known for creating some of the most successful sitcoms of the modern era, including The Big Bang Theory and Mom, Lorre found himself at the center of a media circus in 2011, vilified by Sheen in a series of public rants that spiraled into one of the most talked-about scandals in television history. But behind the scenes, Lorre wasn't just weathering a PR nightmare. He was questioning whether he even wanted to continue. According to Entertainment Weekly, the tension between Sheen and Lorre had reached such a boiling point that Lorre seriously considered walking away from the show he helped build into a global success. In a revealing interview with TV Guide, Lorre described how deeply wounded he was by the ordeal, especially the personal attacks from Sheen, who referred to him as a clown. The hostility reached such heights that Lorre, speaking with fellow showrunners during that turbulent winter, made an earnest offer to step down. He recalled telling them, "If for some reason I'm now the Antichrist, I'm happy to leave. It's not in my interest to stop the show, and I certainly don't want to put all these people out of work." Lorre's primary concern wasn't salvaging his ego or protecting his name. It was the livelihoods of the hundreds of crew members, writers, and support staff who would be collateral damage if the show collapsed. He tried to remove himself from the equation entirely, suggesting the studio move forward with a new showrunner to ensure continuity. But CBS didn't take him up on that offer. The network stood firmly behind Lorre, not just as a proven creative force, but as the one trying to steer the show through a moral and operational crisis. When CBS ultimately decided to fire Sheen, Lorre made it clear that it wasn't about clout or revenue, it was about principle. In an industry often accused of valuing profits above people, this was a rare moment when ethics won out. Firing the highest-paid actor on television was not a light decision for a network that had seen 2.5 Men become a cornerstone of its primetime lineup. But the increasingly erratic and dangerous behavior Sheen displayed both publicly and privately left CBS with little choice. Lorre would later reflect on the studio's support during that dark time as a validation of doing the right thing, even if it meant rebooting the show's entire dynamic by bringing in a new lead, Ashton Kutcher. Number 6. Hugh Grant almost starred in the show. Yes, you heard that right. After Charlie Sheen's very public departure from 2.5 Men, CBS and Warner Bros. Were left scrambling to fill the massive void. While Ashton Kutcher ultimately stepped in as Walden Schmidt, a charming billionaire with his own emotional baggage, few realize that another major star was seriously considered for the role, none other than Hugh Grant. The producers, eager to keep the momentum alive, dangled a substantial paycheck in front of him, one that could rival or even surpass what some film stars make annually. According to Deadline, Grant was among the top contenders, and the offer was both serious and urgent. But the timing, as it turned out, couldn't have been more off. During a candid interview with Howard Stern, Grant recalled the experience, admitting that he was indeed approached for the role. He explained that while he was genuinely flattered and found the show hilarious, there was a major red flag. There was no script. The character hadn't been written yet, and the producers essentially wanted Grant to commit based on faith alone. For a seasoned actor with a deep understanding of how critical character development and script integrity are to a show's success, this was a huge gamble. Grant wasn't being offered a fleshed-out role, he was being asked to step blindly into a creative vacuum, with hopes that the writers would later build something compelling around him. Although he turned the offer down respectfully, Grant later joked that maybe he should have bitten the bullet just for the money. Speaking to Stern with his usual dry humor, he said, "They make brilliant TV shows, really. But I said, I'm too scared to sign up without a script." He chuckled that in hindsight, the financial reward might have made it all worthwhile.
They didn't have a script or a new character. They just said, trust us, we'll create one. It's all to do with the very tight time schedule that American television seems to work on.
In the end, the role went to Ashton Kutcher, whose easygoing charm and star power helped resuscitate the show, albeit with a different comedic rhythm. Number 5. Kata Frell went her own way. Berta may have been a supporting character on 2.5 Men, but thanks to Kata Frell's fearless performance and razor-sharp delivery, she became one of the show's most memorable and beloved figures. In an interview with the AV Club, Frell revealed that when she was first approached for the role, the show's creators, including Chuck Lorre, envisioned Berta as a gruff woman with an Eastern European accent, likely to add a comedic edge rooted in exaggerated cultural tropes. Frell, a seasoned stage and screen actor, could have easily obliged. She even admitted to being capable of pulling off a convincing Russian accent. But instead of playing it safe, she followed her gut and made a bold counterproposal during the audition. Rather than portraying Berta as a foreigner, she would ground the character in something raw, earthy, and unmistakably American. This is what gave us a tough-as-nails, working-class woman with a trailer park dialect. Frell's version of Berta walked into the Harper house like she owned the place, with cigarette smoke in her wake and a past peppered with wild stories and run-ins with the law. Her delivery, equal parts deadpan and biting, added an unexpected but welcome authenticity to a show otherwise defined by its exaggerated leads. That single creative decision reshaped the character entirely. What was originally a minor role designed for a brief 2-episode stint became a recurring fixture.
I came on, I was supposed to be part of a 2-part show, and I came on and here I am.
Chuck Lorre and the producers saw in Frell's reinterpretation something undeniably special. She was breathing life into a character that, in lesser hands, might have been a forgettable caricature. Instead, Berta became a comedic anchor, a bridge between the madness of Charlie and Alan's world and the audience's desire for someone to call them out. Frell's Berta was the soul of realism in a world gone sideways. Number 4. Evelyn Harper casting decision. Portrayed masterfully by Holland Taylor, Evelyn Harper became one of the most delightfully insufferable matriarchs in sitcom history. However, what most people don't know is that Evelyn almost had a very different face and an entirely different energy behind her character. In the original pilot, titled Most Chicks Won't Eat Veal, the role of Evelyn Harper was played by the highly respected and multiple Emmy-winning actress Blythe Danner. At the time, Danner brought a more refined, arguably softer maternal presence to the screen, less venomous, more elegant, and almost aristocratic in tone. She certainly had the acting chops and gravitas for a long-running series role, but despite the pilot's internal success and positive testing, her version of Evelyn never aired publicly. When CBS gave the green light for the full series, Danner quietly exited the project, and Holland Taylor was brought in to fill the role that would eventually become iconic for its unfiltered sarcasm and unapologetic narcissism. According to co-creator Chuck Lorre, the role simply didn't suit Danner in the long term. He diplomatically stated that the part wasn't a natural fit and that a recasting was necessary to hit the comedic tone the show demanded. But insiders close to the production have long speculated that Danner may have clashed with producers over the script. Holland Taylor, unlike Danner, leaned all the way into the acerbic energy the creators were aiming for. With her theatrical training, aristocratic bearing, and fearless delivery, Taylor didn't just play Evelyn Harper, she weaponized her. Under her portrayal, Evelyn became a scene stealer who managed to be both magnetic and despicable, often using her son's crises for personal gain, or as opportunities to lob barbed observations about their failures. Number 3. Holy Book of Alan. Long before Evelyn Harper became the butt of 1,000 jokes and the internet's favorite sitcom punching bag, co-creators Chuck Lorre and Lee Aronsohn envisioned him not as a mooch, but as a modern-day reflection of one of the Bible's most tragic and stoic figures. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, Lorre revealed that Alan was originally crafted as a man who embodied quiet suffering, a good and decent person beset by endless hardship, trying to do right by everyone around him.
They had made up their minds that John was a show killer.
Only to be met with failure after failure. This spiritual subtext was meant to provide a grounded emotional core to 2.5 Men, a counterweight to Charlie's hedonism, where Charlie Harper channeled Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, chaos, and indulgence. Alan would be the embodiment of Job. But as the series evolved, and as the chemistry between John Cryer and Charlie Sheen unfolded on screen, Alan began to morph. The tragicomic lens through which he was initially viewed shifted to something broader, more absurd, and eventually downright cartoonish. His earnest misfortunes gradually became a parade of humiliations, and the narrative stopped treating him like a man unfairly punished by fate and started treating him like a man who brought misery upon himself through denial, stinginess, and a startling lack of self-awareness. Number 2. Ashton Kutcher versus Charlie Sheen. The tension between Charlie Sheen and Ashton Kutcher following the transition on 2.5 Men could have easily passed as a subplot straight from the sitcom's own script. While the studio lights welcomed Kutcher, Sheen didn't. Rather than criticizing the show's direction or the producers who replaced him, Sheen focused his frustration on Kutcher, an actor who, by all accounts, had simply accepted a role. On multiple occasions, Sheen lashed out on social media, calling Kutcher's performance lame and implying that the show had suffered because of his casting.
He is being super nice now, and it's freaking me out a little bit. He says that he regrets being mean to Ashton Kutcher.
The jabs weren't just occasional, they were relentless. Kutcher, known for his typically affable public demeanor, didn't immediately respond, but when the verbal barbs persisted, even he had to draw a line. In a rare and memorable TV interview, Kutcher quipped that listening to Sheen had become like hearing one of the adults from Peanuts, nothing but an incomprehensible drone. Time, however, softened the edges. Years after the online tirades and public awkwardness, Sheen took responsibility for his actions. Speaking on Australia's Kyle and Jackie O radio show, Sheen admitted he had been stupidly mean to Kutcher. And now we'll discuss how too much controversy can be bad, even for a sitcom. Number 1. Controversial scenes that plagued the series. 2.5 Men built its massive fan base on raunchy humor, envelope-pushing storylines, and a no-holds-barred portrayal of a deeply dysfunctional family. But as the seasons rolled on, the same irreverent tone that once captivated viewers began to stir controversy, not just among critics and parents, but even within the show's own cast. Over time, several scenes pushed the boundaries of good taste to a breaking point, leading to a mixture of backlash, moral criticism, and ultimately, the dramatic exit of Angus T Jones. Perhaps one of the most controversial arcs came during the later seasons, when Jake Harper, once the adorable, slightly dim-witted kid, was gradually transformed into a vessel for increasingly vulgar humor. In one notorious scene, Jake, now a teenager, delivers a speech full of innuendo while surrounded by adult characters who cheer him on. While such jokes had long been a part of the show's DNA, seeing a character who literally grew up before the audience's eyes being dragged into the sleazier side of the show's humor hit a nerve. Another major source of criticism was the show's handling of relationships and gender stereotypes. One particular episode involving Charlie manipulating several women at once, including using Jake to gain sympathy, led to an online outcry. The series was accused of glorifying misogyny and promoting toxic male behavior. But no moment was as damning or as damaging to the show's reputation as Angus T Jones's dramatic disavowal of the series that made him a star. In 2012, while still under contract and appearing on the show, Jones delivered a bombshell during an interview with the Seventh-day Adventist-affiliated Forerunner Chronicles. In the now infamous video, Jones called 2.5 Men filth and openly urged viewers to stop watching the show, saying, "You cannot be a true God-fearing person and be on a television show like that." This was a breaking point.
I'm on 2.5 Men. I don't want to be on it. Please stop watching it. Please stop filling your head with filth.
Though producers initially tried to smooth things over, Jones's outburst marked a definitive shift in tone. He was downgraded from a series regular in season 11 and did not return for the final season, except for a brief cameo in the finale. His departure, following the loss of Charlie Sheen and the show's contentious tonal pivot under Ashton Kutcher's tenure, was yet another blow to the series. It stripped 2.5 Men of the last member of its original trio and cemented a perception that the show had lost touch with both its characters and its audience. This was literally the beginning of the end. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.